G'day everyone, this is Rangadad, not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. This is my daily market scan, and yeah, going to be a very interesting weekend, I think. Bitcoin's doing some good stuff, breaking through some of the key levels that we identified previously. And look, it looks like for the time being, it's going to leave this liquidity down here. There is a potential for it to come back into sort of the 95, high 95s at least, I would say, just on pullbacks. But at the moment, there's plenty of short liquidity coming in too. So there's lots of shorters in the market at the moment. And that's actually potentially going to drive a short squeeze. And there's certain charts that are suggesting that it could be a decent squeeze, like a pretty good pump. I don't know whether we'll get to this up here at 102.9 soon, but certainly up into the 99K sort of area wouldn't be unheard of. In fact, you'd almost think it was a given looking at this. So yeah, a lot of long liquidity down in here. I think that's potentially going to be a target. Yeah, especially this level here. So 97,200 is a pretty good level there for those that are interested in shorting. But with markets like this that just grind up, Bitcoin can be a tricky one to short. This here was basically a liquidity hunt, just trying to get some longs out of the system. But didn't take a lot, really. What was that? That was 70 million. That's nothing really compared to 176 million. So yeah, maybe down into here just to freak people out again. If this is a bull trap, then yeah, there's plenty down below still. So there's a couple of, I guess, issues that Bitcoin's going to have to overcome or move, regardless of if it's going to keep going up. So we'll get into that a little bit in a second, but key levels above, I think 99,200 is going to be a pretty good resistance level, but we'll have a look at whether we think that's going to be it or not. For the time being, it does look like it may want to actually come down into this area first. So I won't be doing a video tomorrow either. A lot on this weekend, so, and somehow I seem to have managed to get a bad case of vertigo at the moment. Really fantastic timing. All right, I bet, this is pretty good. There's, I don't know if these guys are actually buying or selling at the open, but certainly some of these, I dare say, would be buys. Just have a look at today only. Just see where the action's at. Okay. Some sweeps down here before moves up. That's a good sign. Sweeps at the highs, not necessarily the best sign for continuation, but in general, there's been a fair bit of interest on the way up. Yeah. All right. Coinbase hasn't really had anything major down the bottom here. I'll just go to the largest 20. But I think these guys were sort of loading up in the last couple of days. Interesting. Decent trade at the open. It's down since. So Coinbase still moving down is kind of a contrary indicator to Bitcoin going up. Again, it's a business, not necessarily a coin, but something to keep in mind. There has been some trades here still on the 2x Coinbase fund. So, and that has ticked up a little bit today. That's probably a bit more of a positive sign, but not a very strong one. Marathon Digital is still not really gaining much ground either. So these ones looks like the market's sort of maybe waiting for a bit more of a pullback before piling in. XLP, so XLP's had what looks like potentially a buy there actually. Could be a sell. Could be one of these guys getting rid of the position. But I don't know. Consumer staples, I suspect, is going to grind up a little bit still. Interesting bid down here, or trade, let's call it. Big drop today on consumer discretionary. That's a negative sign for markets. And the other negative sign is, where's financials? Financials, lots of trade through the high here and a massive drop today. So that's actually probably a concern. Well, it is a concerning sign for markets that financials have come down that hard. I haven't looked at the news to see what might be causing that, but energy, typically a bit of a defensive sector, is still holding high. Metals and mining sort of holding these lows and starting to tick up a little. I kind of expect metals and mining to do okay if we go bear, just because I think the money's going to be pumped into infrastructure. If they're doing recovery plans and all that sort of stuff, but it'll probably come down as well. Although it is, if we do look at, let's go, the last year, I'm pretty sure this is, yeah, pretty flat over the year. Anyway, it'd be interesting if it comes down to this level, because there was a lot of sweeps around here defending that level. Technology, yeah, look, big opening sell, I'd say. Hasn't been able to recover. A lot of the stocks and indexes are doing this today. So they had a big drop at the start and they're just working their way back up into the vector candles. Utilities, again, a defensive sector, is holding reasonably strong. There's a fair few trades up around this area though. So it might hold better than the others, but it'll probably still come down if there's a major correction. So Bitcoin, this is an interesting one. So this is obviously Binance. Coinbank doesn't really aggregate stuff. Some of the indicators do, but again, we've got two big longs in here at 95,900 ish, and one down at 95,100, making everything else look tiny. So moves down into that over the weekend. That would be a pretty good retrace. If we do, let's say it pulls up stumps, say it gets that 99,200, that would be down into the 618 big retracement level. So not a bad level there. It's smack bang on the 50 on the 0.5. If we pull back from here, which I don't know if we will or not, but it is getting reasonably overcooked. Haven't really got a topping signal yet either, so we could just get one last spike up and then pull back. That's typically how Bitcoin likes to do it. And there is some stuff up there. I might sign up to CoinApe to get the order levels, but at the moment I necessarily see it as something I need to do. This is an interesting setup too. So Coin Glass is actually showing aggregated futures volume CVD is not going up as much as what CoinAnk suggests. So CoinAnk suggests it's sort of still trending up, and it's been trending up since right at the bottom. CoinGlass suggests, yeah, it has in futures, but it's quite a lot flatter and it's dropping off quite a bit at the top here. So I just have a feeling CoinGlass is doing a better job of CVD at the moment. And the thing that concerns me most is spot price. CVD is actually dropping quite hard. So it seems like there's some people taking profits on the way up here from a spot perspective. And the fact that the bid-ask delta is so red for so long, like we had it on the drop here and we had the bounce eventually. I'm expecting we got the opposite here on the way up. Eventually, we're going to have a pullback. And it's probably going to be a pretty decent one. Typically, when the funding rates go negative, that's a sign that we may have a potential turnaround. You know, it's confluence. It's not the only sign that you're going to look for, but you know, it's just an interesting little piece of the puzzle, I guess. Like here, it was a good bottoming signal. It happens at bottoms and tops, so we certainly haven't got that sort of momentum to the upside though either. Typically, when it's happening after a run up, you can get some sideways and down action. And I guess where we're sitting is kind of similar to this. We had a lot of green on the bid-ask delta on the way down. It bounced and it bounced really well, went on a decent run. We got some negative funding rates here. We had them at the low, we had them at this high here, and it did pull back eventually, but it did get quite a decent bounce after that'd probably be a 318 pullback, let's say. Yeah, 382, whichever one you're going to use there. So 382 could be an interesting level for us there on a pullback. But at the same time, this was a bit of a shakeout. That was FOMC meeting as well, from memory. So what I would expect here is basically a pullback, probably into the 95, high 95s, maybe a little lower. The concerning thing is, you know, are we just hitting the top of this range and just going to pull back and go to the lower levels that we identified earlier, around that 91? Hard to say at this stage. There is a lot of red on the bid-ask delta, so, and spot CVD is still dropping. And if we have an overall US market correction, then that could pull things back as well. So the other thing, so sentiment, smart money is flat. Dumb money actually pulled back a little. I think today you'll probably see a little tick up in smart money, and dumb money will pull back pretty hard, just based on what I'm seeing on the market. They've changed the colors on me, which threw me off to start with, but yeah. But we've been talking about this for a while. Love to see these two cross over before, well, when we find a bottom on the market. Okay, into the charts. First one, total crypto market cap versus stables. That's a pretty good break. We are very low on BBWP. It has ticked above the signal line, but it's still super low. But momentum's been low for a while. What have I used? This is a longer percentage K length than what I would normally use. Typically we'd be at 10. So let's see what that is at. So we're still ticking up. That's a really good sign that this rally should have more in it. I'd expect pullbacks to at least find support around this trend line here, though. So we are back above this fairly major trend line. We have struggled to reclaim so far. We are at a resistance level too. Horizontal resistance, on the close, that would be resistance. But closing above these moving averages again is a good sign. I'd expect a little bit of resistance around the 1586, which could be that 90, like it could coincide with 99, a bit over 99. So whether we go straight into the 99 level and then pull back, or whether we pull back and then go up there, pullback first is probably more bullish. But we don't necessarily have to pull back in here straight away either. So the other, like looking at this setup, looking at the BBWP and the momentum setup, coming off a double bottom low, this could easily get into this trend line here, which is sort of through the previous highs, the last little peaks and stuff that we've had. So we could quite easily get into that, which should bring us, let's go. I think that should at least bring us into the 102,500 level. Again, may get some, there's a pivot here, monthly pivot at 99,500-ish, 99,525. That's probably going to be a bit of resistance. There is vector candles in here as well. We've basically recovered these vectors. So now is not a bad time for Bitcoin to sort of pull back and recover some of these before trying higher. And the cyclic RSI is getting to pretty high levels. It can still go higher. But again, it's a pretty good reset to the upside. It's kind of, this stage actually, on the 1 hour, it looks like it could keep going, get up to that 99,500 before probably just finding a pullback there. And key targets for that, based on this, you're looking at 96,800, potentially all the way down into there, maybe a little bit lower just to pick up some of the liquidity that'll be below this pivot point. But just note that this is reset the cyclic RSI too. So typically when the bottom band gets above the midline, you are in bullish control zone, definitely. It can swing pretty hard sometimes, like this one here. So decent run up. Kept going though after the first time the bottom band got up into that area. So, as long as we're sort of chopping around up in this area on RSI, we could go quite a bit higher. And that's where I think we'll be getting into some of those trend lines on total crypto market cap. So even up into the 105 to 107 is on the cards as well. But what I'm expecting out of that, we'd potentially be finding some resistance, maybe even in here. Like this isn't relative percentage-wise to Bitcoin moves. So going to be watching these levels pretty closely, like we've been doing for a while now. Rejection off this trend line is a possibility. if we get all the way up into here, we could, like, Bitcoin could get to 150K and hit this trend line here and find resistance. That would be pretty major. That would be a cycle top sign. But look, it's going to be something we just got to watch on the way up. Watch those key levels. Take profit at key levels. We are at the moment. Looks like it's just tested that value area high. Maybe a little bit higher to go to actually do that properly. Closure above the value area high would sort of confirm to me that there's some strength in this, but you know, Bitcoin itself, it's moving pretty well. Yeah, there's every chance we could actually go to a decent high here. It's just we've got to be careful with the general market, and some of the other coins, they're kind of coming with it, but not really. Solana could break to the upside pretty with a decent run. XRP is finding resistance at this trend line though, so it needs to break through that. If it breaks through, then probably $5 is on the cards. Sui again finding a bit of a double bottom. Just so you know though, everyone's going to be looking at this and thinking, okay, double bottom, let's go. That's my concern at the moment. It's almost too obvious, and the fact that Nasdaq has started to pull back a little. Interesting one here that it has sort of retested and bounced back off those moving averages and that trend line that I had, which I don't know if that's even a decent trend line. Where the frick does that come from? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. Interesting how close that is to the 200 moving average though on the daily. Yeah, so we're also, I can get rid of that now, that's kind of redundant. This is going to be a key level to break through now. And looking at it, I don't think it's going to do that. I think we are going to pull back from here. It's been coming for a little while. If we find some support based off this trend line on the Qs, then yeah, okay, maybe we go on a run. But let's just have a look at the news. Yeah, Fed meeting minutes are out soon, if not already out. Maybe that's what's caused it. So equal weight has looked like it's topping. Like, want to see momentum really start to shift to the downside though to call it. But here's something I didn't notice before, which was probably something I should have noticed. No, it's not a great trend line actually. You got a couple that you could sort of draw in here. I would have preferred that to have hit the same trend line. Yeah, I mean, good zone for a pullback though. So anyway, equal weight looks like it's coming back, which isn't a great sign. S&P 500 looks like it's got some rejection off that trend there. We'll see what happens here. See if it, like if we break down through this little trend here, we're probably going to come back into this level, which is 50 daily EMA plus previous support of basically this whole run since 2023 October. Need to find support there. If we don't find support there, then I'd actually suggest that the 10% pullback is finally going to happen, which would be the 200-day moving average retest from here. But I would suspect it would probably come back down a little bit more than that, at least on sort of a daily candle or a wick basis. I'd prefer to see 15%, to be honest. 52.50. SPY, same deal. Minis, same sort of deal. It's just struggling to sort of really break those highs after an all-time high close as well. To pull back like this, not unheard of. If we get another day where it breaks above that, then I'd kind of be surprised, but that would actually be a pretty positive sign if that happens. Equal weight, again, down day. Still haven't broken through this previous high here. Want to see it clear these wicks. Otherwise, it's looking pretty cooked. Interesting that the equal weight did actually hit the 200 moving average last year. Wonder if that rule applies after the equal weight. IWM, yeah, breakdown of that level. Expect IWM to come back into here as well, which again, 200 daily moving average and the bottom of this channel. If it breaks this channel, it's going to look pretty nasty, actually, I suspect. XLI. For the time being, that is just a retest of the trend line there, the top of that channel. Pointed that out as a possibility yesterday and looking reasonably strong just off that. I don't know that I'd take a long from there, but interesting that it's respected that level so far. XLY, XLP is still pulling back. So it's probably still got a bit to come, which would suggest the market's going to pull back a bit more as well. Like S&P 500 and that should pull back. But it could find some support soon. So yeah, maybe that's why Bitcoin's starting its run to the upside. It does typically lead market runs, or it certainly has a history of doing so. Not this, I wouldn't say typically. This is still okay for the time being. We haven't broken above this resistance, but again, this isn't a great sign for the economy that XLP versus SPY is actually heading to the upside, and we broke this trend line. Equal weight. Ooh, okay. So equal weight hasn't held that trend line. I think the one that has just broken down is a stronger one than if you drew it through here. So I would take that as a break. It hasn't retested yet, but there is a potential to find some support here as well still. So just be aware of that. I wouldn't say it's a confirmed sort of breakdown yet, but that doesn't look great, especially with BBWP increasing, crossing the signal line, and momentum is squarely to the downside. Again, jump on equal weight. XLP versus XLY, XLP versus SPY equal weight. Yeah, I'd expect it to find some resistance around this trend line. If it doesn't, if we break through that, then bigger things to the downside on markets. Staples is still going to the upside, so I think it does look like there's a defensive shift happening. KRE, so regional banking's come back. Just want to have a look at XLF. Okay. Yeah, this isn't looking great with BBWP coming off a reset and momentum just above. It's still in the bullish control zone, but that shift in momentum with BBWP above the signal line typically isn't a great sign. Yeah, there's a bit of a gap fill down here as well. If financials are struggling, the market's going to struggle to go up. But we are seeing a very much a rotation sort of market at the moment, so this could be part of that. We're expecting fireworks at some stage to the downside, and it looks like it's about to happen. It's just it could be a slower thing than what many people might expect, just because the rotations. ITB, XHP, they're still around the lows, just semis. I mean, that's really close to a gap fill there. Yeah. Okay, DJI Gold closing below this level would suggest downside on markets. That's not great. Yeah, I mean, looking at this, you'd expect markets to pull back, and how that affects Bitcoin is going to be interesting. I guess it's a matter of I wouldn't hold positions for too long. Be careful over weekends. Could be some big swings on weekends. Yeah, DJT did break out a while ago to the downside, with DJI having it DJI versus gold break below this level at the same time as DJT being below a key support level. That's pretty negative for markets. Both of them are pulling back as well. Looks like they've got a fair bit more to go. A reset of BBWP on DJI as well. So little spike in VIX today, but it has pulled back a little bit. Found support off this 1550 level. Still below that trend line, which is interesting. But what I wanted to point out was, let's look at the SPY today. So just go to the 1 hour. As you can see, vector to the downside, and then, or two vectors to the downside, and then basically bottoming vector, shift back to the upside. That is a vector candle recovery in play. I'm not expecting us to go back up significantly from there, really. Like, come back up into key moving averages, and it looks like it's struggling to get through them. Should it probably come a little bit higher, or could it? Yes. Kind of expect it into the 611. It doesn't have to, but somewhere around high 610, 611 would be a good level to then pull back. But at the moment, it actually looks like it's going to struggle to even get there. So these sort of things are what we typically get. You know, big moves on the open and then retracement of those moves. Yeah. Especially coming down from the highs. Market likes to trap a lot of people short and then take them out. Let's go back to daily. So skew is showing us the way today. So big pullback on the skew yesterday. Today, I would say you're probably going to have continuation of that to the downside, which suggests more downside on markets to come if that eventuates. The VIX 1 day, again, it's showing the way as well. If we invert that, it's pretty squarely to the downside, coming off pretty good highs as well. So that's suggesting more downside. But these things, like if you want to get general market direction, skew and the VIX 1 day are pretty good. The good thing about the VIX 1 day is it's a live indicator as well, so you can see shifts in it in real time. As you can see, it's started to flatten off a little bit as S&P 500 started to find some resistance. And yeah, could be getting a turn on it. All right, let's go. Daily. The DAX is continuing its pullback. Said it might recover this vector candle a bit, but it did, but didn't find enough strength to get very high. So could still get like a little bounce up over the next couple of days of trading, but yeah, momentum's coming down pretty hard at the moment. Chinese market and Hang Seng looks like it's finding resistance at the same level again. Certainly not really a change of trend or anything yet, but yeah, finding some resistance. Thought it might continue to break through. UK market looks like it's breaking down as well. So that was more a price projection, not a trend line. A lot of these markets, European markets, are struggling a bit economic wise. So markets might finally be letting price action show that. Yeah, interesting break of that little trend line, not a huge one. Hasn't really retested that either. Might have on the shorter time frames. Not something you'd really long into that, but certainly if it's finding resistance at that trend line on the shorter time frames in the next couple of days, it'd be a reasonable short, I would think. Japanese market, again, another retest of this 200 on the daily. Kind of expect that to go down. And global liquidity still kind of hasn't properly rolled over yet. A big reset on BBWP for the Japanese market. It would have to have a pretty major turnaround from here to actually go to the upside. At the moment, it looks geared to break down. TLT's got a little uptick in it. I still think TLT is going to come into at least 91.30. High yield junk is actually up. That's freaking weird. That's a retest of that trend line too. Hasn't really confirmed that retest. I'm just surprised that's up when the market's down so bad. Yeah, that's a weird one. Generally, the bond market is a pretty good signal of what's to come. So this is kind of suggesting that the market, if we do get a pullback, it's potentially going to find support reasonably quickly. LQD, IEF, again, that's certainly not confirming any move to the downside yet. That's a weird signal. 2-year and 10-year yield are kind of flat too. 10 years pulling back a bit. I do still expect them to pull back, especially financials are going to continue to the downside. Chinese 2 years still continuing upside bit. Copper, little bounce for copper. That's a pretty good level for copper too. I mean, that's the 382 level. Typically, I'd like to see it back into the 50%, but you know, if we do go on a big dump on markets, copper's unlikely to get through this level. It may bounce up into this vector candle, then pull back, but even though there's a good case for a move, like a 3-leg move to the upside here, just not sure that that's going to play out. Gold, again, basically rejection off this trend line here. Might even bring that down a little bit now. Whoa, my mouse is really laggy. What's going on there? Okay, so yeah, that's gold putting in a reasonable topping signal here. Momentum, divergence. Again, I'm certainly not buying back in at this level. I'm happy with my sell there. Silver versus gold, still struggling. I did close my silver position as well. I'm just not interested in that at this stage. Might regret it, but who cares? Take the profit. The US oil's still grinding to the upside a bit. Still think it looks like it wants to try this trend line again. Pretty much forget about that for the time being, but yeah. Oil's a tricky one at the moment. Looks like it should still potentially at least pull back into the value area high for a retest of that. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, not interested in that at the moment. Dixie, so decent pullback on Dixie, which is potentially helping markets stay higher than what they probably should be. Fully expect Dixie to come down into 105.25. That 200 is going to be a key level for a bounce. We had a bounce off it down here. If we hit that and bounce, then that's going to be another driver for markets to actually pull back. So we're still in a topping process by the look of it at the moment. It's just there's the rotations are making it look a bit better than what it probably is. Japanese dollar's doing pretty good. Euro should be going okay as well. Not as good as the Japanese yen. That's interesting. Yeah, I'd expect euro to break above this. If it doesn't, though, if we find resistance here, then US dollar should keep going up. The euro and the Japanese yen are the two big comparisons in the Dixie. Aussie dollars, I think, having a decent bounce too. Yeah, okay. Yeah, pretty good bottoming formation there. Momentum's pretty high, but that can stay high for a little bit. A better level for resistance is going to be around the 64.7 in the Aussie. So yeah, the global liquidity is kind of, yeah, it's not looking great. M2 money supply still going up. If this puts in a lower high, that'd be interesting. I mean, it's just been vertical for basically forever, but don't expect that to really be a big read. What I'd like to see is the money supply to come into 15.4, at least come back down into that as a trend line. If we get a reset down into that this year, then probably not a bad thing. Percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average pulled back a little bit yesterday. Mag 7's still sideways, but I'd expect it to keep moving to the downside. Again, just shows you the rotation though. This thing's just sideways. Tesla finding some resistance off these moving averages actually. Don't really expect it to stop there necessarily. Nvidia struggling to really get back up into these levels. We did close the gap at least, but yeah, not looking great. Google's flat, coiling above a key level, not great. Microsoft retesting this trend line, that's interesting. I did have another reasonable day, but a retest of that trend line could lead to more downside, especially if the market pulls back in general. Okay, that's an interesting one. Pointed that out the other day. Looks like a false breakout on ARK-K. That's a bit of a fake out there by the look of that. That's suggesting risk off, which is going to be tricky for Bitcoin if that is the case. Apple, yeah, it's still just grinding up to this level. It's going to have all sorts of resistance. It could be climbing the wall of worry, but I'd expect either like pretty well where it's at now or up into this trend line to be resistance. Triple M was looking good yesterday, but it's not ideal. kind of a nothing candle, really. Amazon, though, is continuing to the downside. This 50 moving average on the daily and this trend line are going to be probably a bounce point for Amazon, I would say. Meta, Meta's had a bit of a shitty couple of days. Inquiries, yeah, that's not moving the price. This is profit taking. I would expect Meta to bounce up a bit, at least recover part of this vector candle though. But geez, that's a pretty decent sell-off. Airbnb, okay, I'd expect that to come down at least to 147, but potentially a gap fill into the 141. But if earnings are good, oh, excuse me, if earnings were good, I do still think that Airbnb would be a pretty good buy around 136. AMD still hovering. AVG, so Broadcom's still pulling back. SMCI is, wouldn't say it's a continuation of the breakout today, but it's holding. Back into a retest of this level 49 would be an interesting one. TSM, probably got a little bit more to come yet. ASML, yeah. This is what, like, semis across the board are pretty flat to down, so that's why we haven't managed to fill the gap on semis yet. Stellantis kind of looks like it wants to break through this resistance. Coiling below it is not a bad thing. Needs to do it fairly soon though if it's going to do it. And for it not to be a fake out, it needs to really confirm it. Ford, yeah, not interested. Aussie market, good bounce off the 50. But if we do get an update today, I'd be surprised just given what the US market's done. I'd kind of expect continuation of that move. What's the percentage on that so far? It's only 3%. All right, let's have a look at these guys. ETH BTC longers, they're still hard at it. ETH BTC is still flat. There's not a lot of interest in Ethereum versus USD longs or Ethereum versus USD shorts for that matter. Shorts are climbing, but yeah, surprised there's not as many longs. Bitcoin longs, they've flattened off a little bit. Typically, that will suggest a little pullback on Bitcoin. Has the potential for it anyway. Just looking at previous times where it has done that. And they've been buying in pretty hard too, so expected to have a pullback in the next couple of days. Shorts are climbing a little bit. There are actually quite a lot of shorts in the system at the moment. Bitcoin dominance is heading up still. So Ethereum needs to break this level for it to go on a run. Like, it's still struggling with 2766. It's got the momentum and the BBWP set up to break it. It could actually do that while Bitcoin pulls back. which could actually lead ETH versus BTC on a bit of a bounce. Ideally, you'd kind of like to see it come up into this vector candle here, test the value area low. So Ethereum could be a good play up into the 3,000 mark. I don't know whether it'll clear that. There's a lot of like moving averages and stuff in that area. So if BTC doesn't go on its run to 150k, then I'd say that would pull up Ethereum as well. So that was interesting. When I looked at the 1 hour time frame, there was kind of another channel here, I guess, on CME. Pretty good break above at the moment on CME, and need to be watching this trend line on CME as well, because it has been a pretty major one. Goes all the way back to the breakout lows. So again, that's going to be a key level, and it's probably going to happen around the 102,500, that sort of area. So that's a key target for me at the moment, around the 102 to the upside after potential pullbacks. So we did actually, while I've been talking and talking, we did actually just hit the value area high and pull back off it. Still a pretty good candle close. If we can close up around here or even above the value area high, then that could lead us into the 102,500s pretty easily. Notice how CME has a very different trend line to the normal market though. Why is that there? Interesting. I'm going to move that down. Oops. Yeah, I don't know. Bit sus on that one actually. That's I don't know why I didn't draw it through the bottom of that when I did it originally. Again, that is actually similar to CME when you draw it that way. 102,500 is going to be an interesting level, I think. If we get to that, this could just be a range play as well. You know, we are in a range here, but you look at the momentum and BBWP setup. If we have another day to the upside, the BBWP would suggest that we could just smash straight through that. Thing I'd be cautious on, if we do hit that and reject off and BBWP's increasing, that could actually lead to a pretty decent sell-off. You can almost be guaranteed that that would be down into the 85s. So yeah, I guess that's what I'm looking at. I'm pretty happy with the break above this trend line at the moment. Pullbacks into the areas that I identified before, which what were we talking? At least 96,700, but I suspect there's fair bit of liquidity around the 95,200 as well. So potentially down into that high 95s even. I think was where the liquidity was sitting at. But yeah, pullbacks at this stage should be met with buying demand. It's a tricky one with stock market looking like it wants to go on a run to the downside. Litecoin is actually Litecoin on the 1 hour kind of looks like it wants to potentially go higher, but when cyclic RSI is coming into the mid band here, you can get a rejection off that. So tricky one. especially with the pivots just here, and it has respected that pivot quite a few times. And vector candle down in here as well. So it might just be a little run up before more sell off. All right, I think that'll do for today. I'll